speed is the currency of success for early stage companies.
Don't sit on your ideas. If you have a great idea, you have to move.
The idea of staying in my lane, that has never served me.
In this episode, I sit down with Chad Jardine, the visionary founder of CMO Zen, to unpack why the future of work belongs to the fractional elite. From mastering speed and decision-making to scaling with agility, Chad shares how fractional roles unlock rapid learning, diverse experience, and serious results. We dive into what it really takes to build a fractional firm and bridge the gap between marketing and sales. It's an episode packed with entrepreneurial honesty, sharp strategy, and a few good laughs about business ideas worth moving fast on, including my own infamous donut shop story. Tune in to discover how to think, build, and lead like a modern day fractional powerhouse. Hey, Chad, thank you so much for coming to Revenue Rascals. I am so excited to talk to you about fractional CMO work. Here on Revenue Rascals, we talk about being a fractional CRO, but there is so much amazing juiciness available for expert marketers to become a fractional CMO. And I am so passionate about fractional CRO work that I'm excited for my audience to learn all about this. When I came about what you do, I was like, yes, I love this. He's helping just regular, probably coaches, X 9-to-5ers, everyone who, thinks consulting is going to be this amazing, easy thing. And then you realize how hard it is. And then you come across fractional work, which just makes it all make sense. So Chad, I would love to learn about what inspired you to start CMO Zen and a little bit about how you find the right matches for both companies and then also your fractional CMOs.
So my little boutique fractional firm is called CMO Zen. And I had been knocking around the idea of starting this firm for many years and just been, kind of seduced by my full-time gigs along the way. And so, when I finally got to a point where I was calling everybody I knew who was doing fractional work, and I was saying, hey, I'm thinking about launching a fractional thing, talk me off the ledge here. Tell me why this is a terrible idea. And they were like, no, you should do it. You should do it. So really, I got started because I had that idea, and I think fractional outside of fractional CFOs. Fractional CFOs have been around a long time, but other fractional execs, it wasn't really kind of normalized. And so in the early days, I started CMO Zen 4 years ago, and I did a lot of education and explaining about what a fractional chief marketing officer was. That is gone now. People are much more comfortable and familiar with fractional execs. And so I got started really just because kind of the planets aligned, and finally I got nudged, out the door, by well-meaning friends who pumped me full of false confidence and set me off. And it's been a great journey. It's been wonderful.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So I think for me, when I first decided to do the fractional CRO work, you really have to sit down and decide how many clients can I take on at any given point? Do I do this projects? Retainer? In my opinion, there's probably 10 different ways that you can be a fractional leader and what your packages look like and your specific skill sets too, right? You can package it in multiple different ways. So Chad, how did you go through that process, exiting, your 9-to-5 to take on your 24-hour job? Because that's what we all do as entrepreneurs. And you figured out the packaging.
I think that's so true, right? The productization of your essentially consulting work is so important because it is really difficult to hire fractionals. It's hard to tell what you're getting. It's hard to tell, is this the right fit for what my business needs? And how well you productize and package your services really helps the client. It's a real kindness to them to package that. So in the early days, I was clueless like everybody. But what I knew was that every consulting gig I had done and every consultant I had hired was hired on an hourly basis before that. And I knew that didn't fit the client. So when I would talk to clients like, hey, how many hours of CMO do you want? Nobody has any idea. What they usually have is an idea of what their budget is, what they can afford, and where they want to go. And so my job became packaging and productizing my service in a way that matched their budget and where they wanted to go, and left us both kind of an escape hatch down the line. As long as we were communicating well, we could revisit that and say, hey, I know we started on this kind of basis, and either that's not working for me or it's not working for you. Do we need to make adjustments? And that has worked really well for me. So I do most of my work on a monthly fee basis, and I occasionally will do projects or smaller advisory type work, but usually only when that's kind of a gateway drug to monthly fee, monthly recurring type of gigs, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Like I love the monthly reoccurring, but I also like the scope to fit the client, right? So it's like this juggling of like project, retainer, but the monthly recurring fees, like that's actually my favorite part of being a fractional, is that it gives you a bit of the comfort of the 9 to 5, knowing that something's going to bill at the top of the month every month for whatever period of time. But at the same time, the freedom to be the impactful fractional leader that you and I both are, to make differences in companies. So for me, it was like the perfect mix. So tell me a little bit, like if you can share any like current clients or past clients, like a favorite project that you've worked on, or, a favorite initiative you've been able to execute. I would love to hear that.
Okay. I'll tell you about it. One here, but before I jump into that, I just want to say, one of the things about fractional work, if I had my career to live over again, I would have done fractional work much earlier. And the reason is I don't think there is a way to learn faster than doing multiple clients at once. And in a full-time role, right, you tackle the projects that are right in front of you, tackle, what's urgent. And then there is no incentive to go back and revisit your past work. So in my sort of 20-year career before I started working fractionally, the projects that I'd done, maybe a dozen of these projects, and in the first 20 years, I had done them 4 or 5 times. So the amount of repetitions that I was getting at these, especially the kind of foundational go-to-market projects, my number of reps was just going through the roof. And so that really helped me kind of wrap my head around. I started to build libraries of playbooks and best practice workflows, and started to make it to where, I'm going to pull this thing off the shelf. And this has all of my best thinking and any of the other CMOs who are working with me, all of their best thinking is now instantiated in these workflows. And that it creates a lot of leverage, which is what you want for clients, right? You want to put in really valuable time. You don't really have any time to waste, and they don't have a budget to afford a bunch of wasted time. And so that process was, really eye-opening and helpful for me. And truly, I wish I had done it earlier in my career. It would have been a leg up.
But can I challenge that though? Like, I'm curious, if you did it earlier, do you think you would have had all of the reps you needed to be the best fractional CMO you possibly could? Because I look back at my history and like, yes, I would have liked it to be earlier, but at the same time, I feel like it came at the perfect time where I'm like, I could do this with my eyes closed. I've done it 50 times. I know it works. I know it doesn't. I know where the red flags are. I know what bomb not to step on in the field and all of the other things.
I mean, that's a great question, right? And none of us get the opportunity to do that, to like go back in time and take another shot at it.
So true.
But that's really just my way of saying that the repetitions and the learning curve in fractional has I feel like I've grown more as a marketer and as an executive doing this than I did. The pace was slower as a full-time exec, and my exposure was smaller. Like the number of scenarios and the types of clients and the things that they were up against was less broad. And so I just feel like it has been a huge blessing and an opportunity to both skill up and gain more experience in a condensed way than when I was working full-time.
So that's a great story. So one of the last CEOs that I was working for, like I think I was with them for about 9 or 10 months. And, he was trying to get me to like basically be full-time. He's like, I'd love for you to be full-time. And I'm like, I felt like we were in like a dating marriage conversation, right? And I'm like,
are you going to seal the deal? Are you going to come through?
Like, I don't really think I could do that. And he's like, why can't you do it? You're so good at this. And I said, I'm good at it because I'm great at solving really big, hairy problems and moving at the speed of light and making sure that nobody is in my way because I get the permission before I come in. And if I go full-time employee, a lot of that power is stripped away. And I to stay in this role so that I can get you the best darn results possible. And then also like set you up for success beyond me so I can go solve another big hairy problem. So Chad, do you feel like that when you're in companies? And like, I don't know how long your tenure usually is, but for me, it's like 6 months to 12 months is usually like the normal amount of fractional time that I spend.
Yeah. We're typically 9 to 15 months is kind of our
very similar.
Range. And I would say the leverage that we try to create for clients also works for us, right? So if we can take, hey, I'm going to solve a problem quickly and bring in a whole bunch of experience and things like, hey, here's this problem that's a showstopper for you, Mr. Client, but I have solved this 10 times so far this year. And I can tell you exactly what this is going to look like, right? That's super valuable for them. And it's also super condensed. Well, we benefit from that too, right? It's like, okay, so now for the next 10 hours, I'm not going to pound my head on the sidewalk, counting, clock watching or whatever else I would do as a full-time employee. Now I'm going to get this done for you. And we're going to make this leap ahead for you in terms of value. And then also I'm going to take advantage of that in how I live my own life. Now, that said, I think there's probably a lot of people who work fractionally that wouldn't mind jumping in and out of fractional work. Something that I never expected to see was the number of people that work full-time jobs and take like 1 or 2 fractional gigs on the side. And I've seen that work really well. So I'm not anti full-time work. I think if working fractionally really does expand your options and gives you the ability to, you can slide into a full-time role. I have many of the fractional CMOs that have worked for clients for me have been recruited and taken on as full-time employees. And that I view that as a successful outcome for them. Both sides were getting something that they wanted. But I feel what you're saying, right? Like, and in fact, when I was first interviewing other like solopreneur fractional CMOs, oftentimes you'd hear it's like, oh, I'm not cut out for corporate work. And you dig in, and it's like somebody had a really bad boss somewhere and they do not want to go through that pain again. And this gives them an alternative, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about that side of the business. So clearly you took off and you needed other fractionals to help you fulfill the work. And that's part of CMO Zen. So talk to me a little bit about how you found those people to partner with and how you were able to grow a one-man shop to, essentially like a CMO fractional agency, for lack of a better definition.
So I think I set out from the beginning with the idea of building a small firm. And part of that was that I wanted to work with, I had people that I wanted to work with. And so I didn't want to just be on my own. And also I was hedging against the volatility of consulting work, right? Like there's feast or famine times and it's volatile. And so I was trying to smooth some of that out. And some of that's been successful and some, maybe less so, like the world is still nuts. But it has been a blessing to work with some other people that really improves my learning curve too. As a full-time CMO, it's not like you run into a hairy problem and you go chat with the other CMOs in the company. Like there's no peers, there's nobody else that's there. And so to be able to have at least a small semblance of a community to say, hey, what are you working over here? And how does that relate to what I'm working on over here? That has been really, really incredible. And the transferability, like somebody may be solving a problem in an e-commerce or direct-to-consumer company over here, and then somebody's got some, enterprise B2B company over here. And it is amazing how often the kind of strategic questions or the solutions will transfer. I may be set out without fully understanding how good that would be, but it has been a real boon in my business.
Yeah, I love that because, if I think about, for me, from a sales perspective versus marketing, the tech companies, they usually set themselves up for success pretty quickly because they typically have like a head of sales or a CRO or maybe even the CEO that is like sales first focused. So a lot of the enablement, a lot of the good hygiene, I would say, and starting a sales team is there, right? However, every other industry is 400 miles behind tech companies, which is like 90% of the world, right? And so I can see this. I love having other people around me that are doing like really big, exciting things, especially in tech, because that's the fastest moving industry. And being able to compare notes, like right now, I'm working with a large life science company. And most of what they sell is a consumable, disposable, and I told him before he even hired me, I was like, this is my first one on life sciences, but you know what? I'm going to carry out all those lessons over to this. And if I was just full time and always life sciences, I don't know if I would be as valuable to that organization because you've seen so much, you get to cross pollinate. I love that, for the business model for both of us. So, I mean, for me, I'm constantly looking for other CROs who want to be part of it, just like you are with the CMOs. So I'm curious, like, how did you find them and what does client acquisition look like? Like, are they bringing in clients using some of your frameworks or you doing all the acquisition and then they're more facilitators?
Yeah, great question. Let me rewind just a step and say, have you ever read the book Range?
So I have not, but I put it on my list because it was in your notes. So I want to hear all about it.
That whole thing about, right, the most rascally thing being stepping out of my lane, Range is great for that. And I just keep seeing it reinforced in my career that by, just like you said, cross-pollinating across industries and we over-index on industry a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure you see this, right? Hey, I'm a CRO for tech companies, and that makes it easy for tech companies to choose you. So it's not a convention that has no utility, but it does, I think, shortchange us sometimes, because we think that like the skills for our specialties are way more transferable than sometimes I think we give ourselves credit for. Range kind of explains why that works, but I'm with you, right? Like, this is probably the past year and a half, I've been working with more manufacturing companies than I'd ever done before. In fact, of all the industries I worked for in my career, I don't know that I had ever worked for maybe one that was a retail manufacturer. But these manufacturing companies are great because a lot of the early go-to-market kinks that I work with tech companies on, they've validated long since, right? Like, they've only survived because they're making money and because they're providing value in this sector. But they don't have, that also kind of allows them to get really far down the track without maturing their sales and marketing process. Because their sales, they're like, well, we got this far. I knew somebody and we sold some stuff and all right, we're good. And so there's a great opportunity to kind of break them loose and get them, up to the next level.
Yeah. And Chad, that's selfishly for me. On the finding the CMO side, like the other CMOs, because I'm actively seeking CROs. And so selfishly, this question is for me. So I'll just be transparent.
Well, when I first started, I wasn't sure which would be harder. Would it be harder to find CMOs or would it be harder to find the clients? I think because, like a CMO can take maybe 4 or 5 clients. So there's a natural kind of leverage there. It makes it, it's harder to find a full plate of clients than it is to find a CMO to work them. But some places I just started, leveraging everything I could in my network. So I would go to these masterminds. I would go to these CMO, Zoom calls. I would go to all the live and in-person events that I could. And after a while, I was like, hey, maybe we should, use some of the tools that we're using for other clients. Like maybe we'll do some paid ads. We'll do some cold outreach of different flavors. And what I found was that as I would do that, we would land deals, right? Our discovery call calendar would fill up and we would close deals. But those where the relationship starts in a different place than kind of the warm handoff, those deals took longer. The sales cycle was longer. The deal size tended to be smaller and the churn tended to be higher. So I still do most of my finding is just, I don't know, shoe leather. I just talk to people and I think that's one of the challenges in our space is that the need out there is there's plenty. There's plenty of people who need CROs and CMOs, but it's hard as one person to get enough touch points with where that need is. And so you really just kind of have to work that. I haven't found, a magical solution there. It's probably like marketing the CMO stuff is one of the hardest products that I've ever marketed, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so true. I'm actually going back through and taking my own lesson of productization and redoing some of my tiers and making them public facing on my website to help in the education process. Right now, like I have a wait list that I cannot fulfill. And so I need CROs to come and help me, right? But I mean, I feel like a CRO is even newer than, the CMO position, right? And so it's a little bit underdeveloped, but wink, wink, Chad, if you know any, send them my way, please. We both live in the We both live in the greater Salt Lake area.
Yeah, I mean, I probably do have some that would be good referrals for you. I'd be happy to send them your way.
Yeah, amazing.
And
All
you
right.
can vet them out, but
I'll vet them out. But that's what my vision is. And if I could, and so for me, my favorite part is selling. Like I love selling so much. So if I already have the playbooks and the frameworks and everything set up. So just let me sell, baby, and let me have my team.
Yes.
So that's what we're moving towards on Revenue Rascals here.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Boots on the ground, networking. Like I'm old school like that. I have no idea how old you are, but I'm an elder millennial, and it started for me. I know I love saying I don't
know if I dare put that hat on that.
Well, I like it because
I'm fully Gen Xer, but I'm like, woof, that scares me now.
So I do the elder millennial statement because if you look at the millennials, I believe it's 81 through 96. And so I'm 83 and I do not act or behave like someone who was born in 1991. So anyway, I read this article forever ago that like basically bifurcated the millennial generation into the elders and then like the new ones. And I'm like, this is the only time in my life I want to be called elder.
That's great. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just grew up old school. Like we didn't have SDRs. We didn't have BDRs. No one was booking appointments for me. Ads weren't like getting me any calls. I had to work for every single new logo acquisition full cycle. And for me, what works best for me, and which I think honestly works best for most people selling, high ticket anything, is to just actually go talk to people. So anytime someone asks me, I need to find clients, I was like, when was the last time you left your house? Like that would be a really good starting point. And one thing that I noticed on your website here when I was just kind of scrolling through is, you had said missing any of these, let's talk. So you have messaging, ROI from events, demand gen that works, and pricing strategy. One thing I'd love to like just go all in here and talk about is ROI and events, because that profile has changed enormously over the last handful of years. When COVID hit, clearly we all went remote, webinars, virtual events, all these things. And then over the last year, I have seen, like basically a switch back to everybody is seeing each other, handshaking, all the things. And in Northern Utah and like greater Salt Lake area, there is definitely a higher value around meeting people in person than maybe some other business communities out there. So talk to me a little about like what's working for events right now, because I think this is a really great topic.
Yeah. Well, first off, I totally agree in terms of, reading the tea leaves of how the macro conditions are with events. And I don't think that that's going to change, right? I think as AI becomes more prevalent, if I'm here talking to you in person, I realize we're talking virtually, but like if we're in the same room,
irony.
Right? I can't, yeah, right. Like I can't fake that. I can't, you can't come to me there's no AI version of you that I'm talking to. There's no AI, translation in your content and your copy. It's just a person and a person. And I think that, the more disconnected we are, the more that internally we kind of crave that. It's like, hey, aren't we kind of all in this together? We're just a bunch of human beings, trying to figure things out. And so I think events their value is only going to increase. And there's been a little bit of, in marketing circles, at least, there's been a little bit of negativity around events in the kind of post-COVID era, but most of that has to do with the price of really big events. And what I've found is that there's lots of small regional events. And every industry is a little different, right? But one of the things we do early on is a watering hole exercise to find events for every client sector. And the small regional events are often very inexpensive to go to. And where else are you going to find, when you talk about selling, I don't know of a better way to train my salespeople than to send them to an event, right? It's like go and have 50 conversations a day, right? And the feedback loop is so condensed there. It's like, okay, if I'm going to hear about if my messaging is going to work, I will know by this afternoon, right? Because I will have that many conversations and people will respond. If there's a problem or if there's a competitor, if people come to me with an objection, like so many of those things are just easy to surface at events. And otherwise, maybe I would take a month's worth of customer calls or discovery calls to get as much feedback and input as I would get from one event. In terms of like what's working at events, it's funny. That was one of the examples I was going to tell you about earlier is first time in my life, I went to a client event this last month. And it was an outdoor event. I've never, but they sell a product in the utility space. So you got all these cranes and, big machines and stuff. And so it was outdoors. And I'd never been to an outdoor booth, right? Well, and then the first day of the conference, it just rained cats and dogs. Like imagine going to your trade show booth and you're wading through like 2 or 3 inches of water in the booth. And I was like, you think you've seen it all, but I've never had this experience before. Then day 2, the sun came out and we sold like crazy and it was great. We do have kind of like I have a checklist, kind of a 16-point checklist that I do with clients around events. These are events that you're attending, where you're going to make connections. You're either attending or exhibiting, but it's not as opposed to event marketing where I'm creating my own event, my own user conference or something like this. The playbook is a little different for that. But if I'm going to a trade show or a conference, I probably don't have time to hit all of those. But we have a checklist of things that we go through just to get the most value out of those events. I'll give you a couple of tidbits from it. So one of the things we'll do is like we'll use the local ad settings on Meta and drop an ad that's just like a mile radius around the event. This doesn't work very well in Orlando or Vegas where there's like 1,000, convention centers. But if like this event was in Kentucky or if I'm in Salt Lake, right? There's not that many people who are traveling into that area, and we'll use event focused messaging. And typically this doesn't totally flip the script on an event, but typically we'll get a lift of maybe 10% in terms of the leads we extract from the event. And when I first started doing this, I was working for a company and our average cost per lead at events was $80 to $120 at that company. And my average cost per lead on the 10% that I got through paid ads was like $6, right? So distributed that, across my overall cost, right, it was a significant boost. And so we'll do that. Sometimes I'll sign up for events and not even go just to get the list, depending on how the event is figured out,
I love that. So I actually have done that personally for myself. And that probably maybe 4 years ago, I was going to a big event in Florida, but it did work for me, even though I was in Orlando. Yeah. I guess I got lucky. But my ad was, come find me and I'll buy you coffee. Like it wasn't even like a form or anything. There was nothing you could do except for find me. Okay. And I wanted to just test it to see if this would even work. And so it did. And I literally had people coming up to me the entire show being like, hey, you're Michelle. You're like, basically, I see you everywhere. Yeah. Every time I open my phone, can we have coffee? And I was like, this is working so well. And it's like a great hack. And I love the idea of not even going to the event, just getting the list, marketing. Like you don't even need to put people on an airplane if you can finesse that. So I'm going to challenge myself next time to not go to the event, run the ads and see what happens because that's even next level. And I feel like that is, it's so powerful to just think slightly out of the box to have slightly different or better results. And that's dramatic. $100 lead or a $6, like, which one are you going to take all day? I mean, that's really meaningful. So I absolutely love that. And I hope people are still doing that one.
Well, something we're seeing too is things that used to be hacks, like doing like a dinner, piggybacking on the event. Now people are getting more formal about that. And there are organizations that it's like, okay, we have an approved sort of scheduled vendor that will organize your dinners and stuff like that. So we're seeing some things that used to be a little more guerrilla are going mainstream. But anyway, events are great. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm going to stay guerrilla. That's my whole, I'm guerrilla. And as soon as it comes mainstream, I'm like, I have to replace it with something else. Like I just can't even.
I hear you.
Okay, so let's talk about the business journey because building a business is not for the faint of heart. It is not for everyone. But for me, I can't imagine doing it any other way. Like I absolutely love being a business owner. But it's a lot harder in a lot of ways than like I imagined. And I think it's important that on the show and anytime we talk about it, that, we share like some of like the hardest things about building a business. So I would love to know in this journey of building CMO Zen, like what was one of the toughest moments in this journey for you?
I mentioned how I had started with partners and wanted to have more people as a way of kind of helping diversify against the volatility of clients. So the first time that it seemed like, all of our client engagements or not all of them, but a bunch of them wrapped up at the same moment, I was like, I thought we'd thought this through. So we've had the same hoop-de-doos about, it's like, okay, now we have a cash flow management issue, and we have we have backfilling that we need to do to replace the bandwidth of the team and things like that. And so, I don't know it's not a particularly new flavor. It's kind of the run-of-the-mill problem that all business owners have. It's like, okay, I have to manage all these parts, and when one part gets out of whack, then that causes problems that demand attention, and it's not something that you can just skip over. So I'd say that's probably been the biggest issue. I think I started the business with two partners who I love these guys. They were, they're both fantastic marketers, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was I wanted to work with them. And as we got into it, they each ended up getting poached by clients for full-time work. They're like, Chad, I got to take this. This is so good. And I was like, oh, because then from a business standpoint, first off, I lose the opportunity to work with them on a day-to-day basis, which, I loved. And then also I lost the client, because then the client didn't need a fractional gig anymore, because they had a full-time marketer. But you weather the storms, and a lot of it's just about persistence, right? Just being unkillable.
Yes. I think persistence is a huge part of it, discipline. And I would agree with you. I think, cash flow, burn rate management, scaling up to fulfill gigs, making sure you don't scale too much. How do you pay them? How do you keep them? It can get real complicated super fast. And, that's a big challenge, because anyone who starts a business, especially when it's their first business, it's not like you have this huge background of oh, I know how to start this business and do all of these pieces. You have expertise that you're bringing to starting the business, but it's not like all of the things. So a lot of it's trial and error, and, making sure that you're surrounded by other really smart people who are building businesses so you can support each other. So I think that's so I would probably say a similar one to you. If anyone was to ask me on the toughest part of the business journey, that is for sure.
When the time I ran out of money, that was the toughest.
That was the toughest, right? I would say taxes. Actually, if somebody asked me, I would be like, taxes. That took me a couple of years to figure out the best way to do that. And I still feel like every year when my business has an evolution or growth, it's like I have to revisit it all. So the tax thing, I'm going to go with that's the toughest part. That's the one. I asked myself my own question. All right. So what is a belief about business and growth that you strongly disagree with, but most would agree with?
I think there's the idea. So I also teach courses in venture capital at the University of Utah. And so that entrepreneurship side of things is strong in both my business as a marketer and in my teaching. And I think we often think that the world is too small. Our vision of what we can do in the world, we often think that it is too small. And usually those it's a limiting belief that doesn't serve us. There's usually more deals, more clients, there's more out there than, it's like, oh, I'm working with, 10 clients. It's like, dude, that's not even a drop in the bucket. Like everything you're doing, your entire, book is just tiny. And there's lots and lots of stuff to go out and get. And so I think those type of limiting beliefs, I think there's probably a lot of people that also agree with me and don't feel that way. But when you're in it, it's easy to get, kind of seduced into thinking too small. And so I'm a big believer that, at least once a year, take a step back and say, it's like, okay, 10x this, 100x this, what breaks, what works and what doesn't. And also just stretching yourself out in how you're thinking about it, so that as those things come, you have a place to slot them in. Cause it's like abundance is out there.
Yeah. I like that. I always like to say what you focus on grows. So if you focus on the fact that there isn't enough clients or not enough opportunity, or you lost one deal to a competitor, then that's going to continue to happen if that's where you choose to focus. Or you can take the alternative approach and be like, well, that's fine. It wasn't my match. It's cool. Like they picked the best person for them. I'm going to move on and, keep going. For me, whenever I just remind myself of that, and I have it written down a couple of places in my office, what you focus on is what you grow. So what do you want to grow? And stay in that lane. And that discipline, which is my keyword for life, really ends up giving you the best gifts possible, right? So
yes, 100%. Yeah, discipline equals freedom. That's the thing and we always think like we are intuitively programmed to go the other way, right? That loosey goosey, but it's really discipline is what breeds freedom.
Oh my, I love that. That's even better than my other one. So I'll take that one from you, Chad. Amazing. All right. So let's talk a little bit about like my listeners right now that are running businesses that don't have a full-time marketer, or maybe they have a junior full-time marketer and they need someone, at a higher level, like a CMO. How does someone know that it's time for a fractional CMO?
I think almost all fractional roles are driven by similar economics, which is a full-time hire is disproportionate budget-wise to where the company is in its growth. So for me, when I first started, I was like, where do I want to focus? I was like, well, how about this sort of revenue band of companies? They need to have some revenue or else they can't pay. And I say that because companies, no matter their size, have more needs than they have budget. 100%.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
So at a certain point, you need a floor. And then at a certain point, hiring full-time there's no economic barrier to them, right? So that's usually maybe a Series B company if they're on a tech path or a venture path. And maybe that's 40 or 50 million in revenue if they're some other type of company. And so that's one of the things. It's that it's an option, that they don't have to hire full-time, that they can, like, I really think that that fractional execs this will be the new way of building companies. And we're still working out some of the kinks of exactly how to, kind of make that magic happen. But that's really what interests me about working as a fractional CMO. It's like, hey, what I'm going to do is unpack the process of taking a company through its steps. These steps look the same a lot. For companies that are going through these early stages. And so if you're in there, my goodness, the chances are what you need is not that unique. It's not that special. Let the special thing about your company be, whatever secret thing you're bringing to the business, whatever unique attribute or experience you have to solve this particular problem. But it's like, right? You mentioned taxes. How many of us have a unique situation about taxes? None of us. None of us. They're right. And it's the same thing, like with your marketing. Sure, your message will be about you and about your product, but the framework, it's not unique. It's the same for everybody, right? Everybody's messaging needs to tell the customer, I get it. I want it from you. All of them. And so, part of that is just getting all of that stuff baked down to, and distilled into something that can be delivered consistently with companies that are at that stage. So you asked, like, how do they tell? Well, if you're a company and you're at that stage and things either have stopped working or you're not quite sure how to get them off the ground, that's you. That's your signal that, getting and maybe getting help means a conversation, or maybe it means hiring a fractional CMO. Almost always we view our job as pushing off the full-time hire, not as job security, but because we want to keep the company in a more proportionate spend as long as we can. Those extra dollars you would be spending on that full-time hire, take those and plow them back into your business, and let us cover this need as long as we can. There will come a time where we can't, where you can no longer really solve your problem with a part-time exec. But in the early days, I mean, how many key strategic decisions are you making in a month in your company? Just ask yourself that. Is it 40 hours worth of key strategic decisions? Probably you're making 2 or 3 key decisions a month. And do you know how much time it takes for an executive to contribute to that? Maybe half a day. It's just not that much. More of what happens is it's like the key, but if you miss on those, right, you might lose a year. And
100%.
Speed is the currency of success for early stage companies. The faster you get out of this fragile stage where the winds of change blow and you're dead, getting out of that fragile stage is what you most need. Like your future success, it's binary, right? If you make it out of this, you have a shot. if you die here where everything's really pretty much the same, but it's not easy. It's hard, but it doesn't require, packing your company full of expensive execs when you just don't have hardly any money.
And I always say money loves speed. So how fast can you move?
Yeah.
All right, Rascals, let me ask you this. How much money have you wasted replacing shoes, sneakers, or even bags that could have lasted way longer if only you'd been taken better care of them? I know for me, running from meetings to kids' activities, life gets messy fast. And that's why I always have Jason Mark Quick Wipes on hand. Jason Mark is trusted care to help you get the most out of what you wear. They're not just about cleaning. They're about protecting what you love while protecting the planet. Their wipes are now 100% plant-based and plastic-free, made from renewable lyocell fibers. They're individually wrapped so you can toss them in your bag, your car, or like me, your kids' backpacks. And it's not just convenience. Jason Mark is part of the worldwide B Corp movement, meeting the highest standards for social and environmental impact. They're EPA Safer Choice certified, so you know the formulas are safe for your family. And their products are USDA, bio-based, and certified biodegradable. That means no harmful junk like PFAS or VOCs. Just high-performance care that keeps your stuff looking fresh while doing right by the planet. Personally, as a busy mom and entrepreneur, Quick Wipes are my favorite. They've saved my sneakers from coffee spills, playground dust, you name it. One wipe and I'm ready to walk into my next meeting looking sharp. So here's the deal. Go to jasonmark.com and use promo code Revenue Rascals at checkout for 25% off your order. One time per customer. Again, that's jasonmark.com, code Revenue Rascals. And remember, this podcast is free thanks to sponsors like Jason Mark. I'm ungating sales strategies people pay me six figures for. So go support them, grab your Quick Wipes or your favorite product, and keep your kicks looking fresh. And, I'm surrounded by so many successful entrepreneurs and business owners. And I've noticed two things about them. One, they have a high tolerance for risk. So they just go. So that's number one. And then number two, they are the fastest decision makers. Even if it's not a perfect decision, they move forward so quickly because, it's kind of funny. So this is a hysterical off-tangent story that I'm going to share. So when I moved to Park City, there is no donuts. Okay. There's no donuts. You have to go to the grocery store to get a donut. Okay. And they're gross and they're not very good. And I don't have much of a sweet tooth, but once a month, I really like a gourmet donut. And I like a nice coffee. And then there's so many sports up here and the kids and there's no donuts. So I started asking around and I've only been in Park City for 18 months. And I'm like, why is there no donuts up here? And everyone's like, oh, they tried a few years ago and, it went out of business because they couldn't get people to basically work up here, blah, blah, all these excuses. And I was like, yeah, you know what?
Donuts aren't going to work in Park City. It's for some reason, people don't need donuts up here. I don't know.
I'm like, that's fair. I mean, I know we're really fit and all the things, but are you kidding? So I was like, this is silly. So for a month, I was thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a business partner who's a great, pastry chef, and I'm going to open up a gourmet donut shop in Park City. And I'm going to do this as a side business, and it's going to be so fun. And I'm really excited. So then, I get into it, I start planning, and I want to bring all the tech elements to it, like the delivery and the membership and all the things that you would do in a go-to-market strategy for a SaaS company. I'm like, oh, I've got this, right? And so then, but little by little, I got too busy with my regular business. I lost momentum. I couldn't find the pastry chef that really wanted to do this. And it just felt like, okay, I'm going to push pause on this. Guess what's opening in Park City in about a month?
Is that the first donut shop?
A gourmet donut shop that literally does deliveries out of a beautiful van. And they have an outdoor patio and it's this beautiful setting in Kimball Junction. It's called Chomp. I can't wait to go there. But I was like, what the heck? This is crazy to me. So the reason why I bring this up is I waited too long and I know it. I wasn't fast to make the decisions. They were fast to make the decisions. And I looked at who the founders were and guess there's three of them. One of them, tech sales. And I was like, I knew it. Like, this is crazy. So what I'm saying is don't sit on your ideas. If you have a great idea, you have to move. And I think that's like a really big lesson around hiring fractional executives, because if you wait, just like I did, I got distracted with other things in my business. And had I just pushed the go button and gotten a team together, I probably would have been opening shop with these guys or something similar. So this is like the lesson. And so I want everyone to hear this of like why you hire fractionals. I'm coming full circle here. Is it speed? And if you wait too long, you absolutely will miss the opportunity.
Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And an example in terms of hiring is like, it is really expensive and painful to make a mishire, right? If you make, so let's say I go out and I hire a full-time CMO and it's wrong. And the thing is, hiring's already kind of broken, right? The amount of time that we spend to try to predict the future about our hires is there's no possible way we can, our predictions are going to be that good. So mishires happen. That's just the nature of the beast. But let's say I go out and I take 6 to 9 months to find the candidate. I hire them. I bring them on. I've got, all kind, like this is a person that has a big comp package. And then I have to unwind all of that and start it all over again. I was like, you could have hired and fired 3 fractionals in that much time. Not that you want to just churn through these people, but you would have, every time you iterated on that, you would have learned. You would have been it's like, oh, here's somebody that brought this experience. My ability to hire exactly right when I go full time would have been refined. And along the way, you would have built up a marketing program that then you could hand to somebody coming in, and they could then take and optimize, continue to grow, scale, whatever. But fractionals are, it's just so much. And also when you need to change a fractional out, it's like 30 days. Mm-hmm. There's no equity. There's no, right? In most cases, right? There's no equity.
I was wink, wink. I have equity.
And I do those deals too, but usually most fair. Often there's not. Yeah. And so just understanding that as an option is, it opens up a new world to you. And it's a little bit looking at the downside, because it's like, but it is so painful to make a mishire and have to replace that person. And then what have you lost? Maybe 18 months, right? Like that perfect hire, when they come in, they're still not up to speed on day one. There's a ramp. And one of the things that we're good at as fractionals is we get going quick. We assess what the business needs, what's driving it. And we're very used to coming up to speed on unique business cases, on unique industries. And so, if there's anything that, a muscle that you kind of get doing fractional work, it's your ramp gets really short, because you got to deliver value quick, or else, they want those quick wins. You have to balance that, I should say, balance quick wins so that, it makes people feel like it was a smart move to hire you, but then also laying foundations for enduring success. And that's part of our productization and how we deliver. Anyway, so I couldn't agree with you more that fractional is fast.
Absolutely. And you're right. Balancing the quick wins with the long-term strategy, like that's the big one there, to keep your value and to keep it moving. It took me a while to figure it out. And I feel like I have like a really good cadence on that, but there was absolutely a learning curve there. 100%. Okay, Chad, we're coming to the bottom of the hour. My favorite question that I ask everybody is, what is the most rascal thing that you've ever done in business?
I love this. I love the whole name of your podcast. This is so much fun.
Good.
And so I mentioned this a little bit earlier.
Chad, does the marketer approve of the title of my podcast?
Oh,
that will make me feel really good.
If there was I would bless this with my magic wand right now. I love it. It's great.
Awesome.
Because everybody has to cater a little bit to their inner rascal, right? Otherwise, what are you doing in life?
What are you doing?
The idea of staying in my lane, that has never served me. And, sometimes, so here's like a place where sometimes if marketing and sales teams aren't on the same page, this staying in your lane starts to become a problem. But it's really more about a problem about how marketing and sales communicate with each other. And like, I am a marketer that loves sales. I think like sales as a department, sales people as a breed, because as a marketer, do you know how much stuff I sell? None. But I'm all about shoveling something over the fence to the sales team. If what is in that shovel is not appealing to the sales team, I'm cooked, right? So I would say that's the rascaliest thing that I've done that has really served me across my career, is that just falling in love with sales teams and sales processes, and not being willing to stay in my lane. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? You can't be a fit for everybody, but it's the crossover. There's so much value to be created in the crossover, and like people feel like you understand. It's like, what's marketing over here doing talking to me? Why are they right along on my calls? It's like, do you actually care what's happening over here? It's like, and that changes the conversation between marketing and sales and makes it more productive in my experience.
Yeah, 100%. Like you say, you're a marketer that loves sales. I'm sales that loves marketers, because it's so much easier to sell something if the marketing is good. Much easier.
My gosh, yes.
Right? And I'm like, why wouldn't I want to collaborate with the marketing arm? Like, that's exactly what we should be doing. And it is such a superpower. And, it wasn't until I started my own business that I ever experienced great marketers. That was my first introduction. Like, I worked for big Fortune 500s that literally to this day, I do not understand how they became Fortune 500s, because the marketing is so atrocious and misaligned with sales that it sort of blows my mind. And I don't even know if you can replicate that anymore. Maybe in some kind of golden markets of you're the only one that does something. Maybe, I don't know. But it's I have such a great appreciation and respect for it. And I also believe, and you probably share the same thing, is if I get hired and there's a full-time marketer in there, you can bet that's one of my first conversations. That's who I'm building a real relationship with. And I'm sure you do the same thing if you come in and there's a head of sales. So if you can cross the lines and work together, everyone's going to win. And if you're going to be deaf to what marketing's doing and marketing's deaf to what sales is doing, that is just so antiquated and we can't do it anymore. So lesson here is bring in the fractionals. They'll come in and they'll execute faster than you could ever believe. All right, Chad. So we'll make sure that we put the website in the show notes, but any call to action for those that are listening right now that would love to explore what it looks like to have you come in and help them.
So our website is cmozen.com. If you want to reach out to me, I'm just chad@cmozen.com. And we do a lot of education with people before we engage. So if you're feeling like, I don't know if I'm ready, have the conversations. It's worth it. We'll both be glad we did. And so feel free to reach out to me. It's approachable. I'm not going to say what, you're calling me and you don't even know? No, it's no, let's talk through your situation, talk through what's happening. And we have a lot of tools that we hand to people. It's hey, maybe you're not ready for us or it's not a fit yet, but here's a bunch of tools that you can take and make progress on your own. My goals, and as an organization, it's all about, getting these companies, these are solvable problems. And so unblocking these companies so that they can really grow. There's nothing that lights me up more than that.
Oh my gosh, me too. We're kind of the same species playing in a slightly different field. But Chad, this was an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you being on Revenue Rascals, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Would love it. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Rascals, where we turn bold ideas into predictable revenue and prove that breaking the rules can still build empires. If you love what you heard, do me a favor. Tap the links in the show notes to support our sponsors. They're the ones keeping this show free so I can keep ungating the six-figure strategies that help you scale faster, lead smarter, and take more freedom home with you. And hey, if you think you'd make an incredible guest or know someone who's built something worth studying, email me at hello@michelleterpster.com. And until next time, stay sharp, stay bold, and stay just a little bit rascal.